Hi, I wanted to make a quick video to answer a simple question. Can you sue a doctor for malpractice if you do not have an attorney? The reason I wanted to know this is because I've been trying to work with the Medical Board of California on some complaints, as many people have. And I have learned, to my horror, that it's virtually impossible to even get a record of the complaint public for a doctor. They have a long, complicated procedure. Only a tiny amount only a tiny fraction of doctors that are investigated, have investigated, are even investigated in the first place, and only a tiny fraction of those ever end up with any kind of notation on the record or anything like that. So the thinking process I was going through is, look, we have no way as citizens to even get this information recorded. What if we just had lawsuits and even planned on losing? Not really planned on losing, but just said, look, we have to express our outrage somehow about what this doctor did. The medical board doesn't do anything. So maybe that would be a way to do it. But I didn't know how much it would cost. I thought maybe a couple $100 or something like that. But let's take a look at the situation and exactly what it is. So the easiest way to get that question answered is to ask, in this day and age, to ask AI, of course. I have two professional accounts at the moment. I have a ChatGPT professional account and a Claude professional account. In this case, I used ChatGPT 4.5, which is one of their research models. And this analysis is for people in California. It might be of value to people in other states, but because it is related to work I'm trying to do with the medical board, I've asked the question in a kind of unusual way. So I'll go over that here. It's right here, the prompt I wrote. Let's say you decide to sue a doctor for malpractice in California. You have a good case, but can't afford an attorney, while they'll have powerful legal organizations working for them and a virtually unlimited budget. The doctor works for a publicly funded organization, so even if you do win, the money won't come out of his pocket. It will be paid for by the government and his insurance company. Even all his time will be compensated for a process that may take years. Still, you decide to do it because, as far as you know, that is the only way to get anything on the official record. A few questions. First, again, the reason I prompted it that way is because I'm doing an investigation of the Medical Board of California. In other words, I'm investigating the investigators, and it's not very pretty. So I wanted to know for that. I was thinking just along political lines, if they're not really doing anything, and it really should go to the court system just to get a record on a physician's record, maybe we should absolutely flood the court system. Now, that's a little bit radical. I don't know if I would have gone that far, but that should have been one route, okay? Do a lawsuit, not necessarily plan to lose, but take it as far as you can, even to a jury trial. So here's the questions I asked after that. How much will it cost for filing fees? Are there any other expenses if you're representing yourself? Number two, can you demand a full jury trial? Number three, will you have the right to discovery? In the legal world, that's where the prosecution and the defense both share documents with each other. They do research and then they're required to share them with each other, as I understand it. And number four, is there a rational way to determine the lawsuit amount? That's just something I didn't know. People are asking, $5 million. I just didn't know how it was done. Should it be, $20,000? I just didn't know. So that's the prompt. Now let's see what ChatGPT 4.5 had to say about that. Filing fees and other expenses. Initial filing fees typically range between $435 and $450 for civil suits in California Superior Court. It does change a little bit by county, and it says medical malpractice will fall into this category. So that's unfortunately higher than I was hoping. I think I thought it might be a couple $100. I maybe had some wishful thinking that was about 100. So right off the bat, almost $500 if you want to go through the courts on something a doctor did wrong. Additional expenses for representing yourself, service of processing, $50 to $100. Court reporter court reporter fees, depositions. I didn't know about this. Usually several hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on deposition length. So you're going to have to hire a court reporter or somehow arrange through their system. Copying, document production, postage, transportation can add hundreds of dollars depending on the complexity and amount of paperwork. Now, expert witnesses, that's a big one. Um, in malpractice cases, expert testimony, whoops. In malpractice cases, expert testimony is critical. Experts typically charge hundreds to thousands of dollars for consultation, reports, and testimony. This is often the largest expense. I learned Family Healthcare Centers of San Diego filed a restraining order against me. They claimed I made threats. My threat was to report them to the Medical Board of California, but they equated that with a violent threat, and the courts equated that with me planning a mass shooting in San Diego. Long story, I'll go into it here. But one thing, they ended up suing my real psychiatrist. I had a fake psychiatrist. They ended up suing the real one. Long story. It's at the Attorney General office level now. It's a mess. But I did learn through that whole process that they consider this just like a battle of expert witnesses. So each side gets their own expert witness, and these guys battle it out, and whoever is the best expert witness tends to win. It's a bizarre system, but that's the way it works. So anyway, this is already kind of bad news. They didn't really add up the amounts yet. Right to jury trial. Yes, you do have the right to a jury trial. Under California law, plaintiffs are fully entitled to a request by jury. Jury trials are common in malpractice cases because the issues typically involve complex factual determinations of negligence and standards of care. They don't say anything about how long it will take, but they do say you have that right. Then you also do have the right to discovery if you can come up with the money. Yes, you absolutely have the right to discovery, which includes interrogatories. I've heard that. Written questions to the opposing party. Requests for admission. Statements you ask the other side to confirm or deny. That in court, when I was taken to court, the attorneys kept barking at me, yes or no, yes or no. That's some idiotic question they would ask. It wasn't a yes or no answer. That must have been one of those. Request for production of documents and medical records. Oh, I would love to have this one. The people I worked with just fake medical records entries all over the place. Looking at different versions of those would be nice. Well, I'm sure they didn't keep it. Depositions, oral questioning under oath. That sounds like a good one too. Probably expensive. You're supposed to have the right to cross questioning in court too. If they're suing you, you don't get that. At least in what was used against me, the workplace restraining order. Expert witnesses discovery. So their reports, their guy's right, your guy's right. You can look at that for each other. And the courts allow self-represented litigants, pro se, I'm not sure what that means, to fully utilize discovery tools. However, the opposing side's attorney may challenge or object to certain requests, requiring you to file motions with the courts to compel disclosure. And I'm sure they would do that, especially since they're operating in more or less an unlimited budget. Determining the lawsuit amount. This is less important right now. It's just, I said, my curiosity. Economic damages, non-economic damages. This is important. Non-economic damages are like, if you're traumatized by an experience or something like that, they are capped at $350,000 per plaintiff, and apparently it's going to go up gradually. Apparently that is considered too tiny amount for an attorney to take a case. You might want to make some kind of deal where you split the reward with the attorney, or however much you end up getting from it, or they end up getting for it. But I recently spoke with the mother. My psychiatrist, as I said, was taken to court. Totally bogus case. The mother of a suicide victim contacted me, that was in court with me. That was another person they blamed, my real psychiatrist. I'm doing something wrong with. It's not clear what. Long, complicated story. But she said to me that she was trying to get somebody to sue one of the institutions involved, and she said she could not get anybody to even consider, any attorney to even consider doing it for part of $350,000. She was from the East Coast, and they wouldn't even consider that. So that's real significant to me. That's a tremendous amount of money, but apparently to attorneys in the system, that's just chump change or something. Punitive damages, very rare in malpractice cases, awarded only if you can prove intentional wrongdoing or gross recklessness. Um, and then you would typically estimate those amounts based on documented financial losses, medical bills, lost income calculations, and standard multipliers for pain and suffering based on similar case precedents. Okay, and then important considerations. Representing yourself in a malpractice suit is highly challenging due to complexity, expense, and the procedural sophistication involved. California expects pro se litigants to adhere strictly to procedural rules and standards. They do not give leniency because you lack legal training, and I can attest to that. In the workplace, I was sued in the workplace restraining order, easily lost. You're barely allowed to speak in their system. And they absolutely mocked me for not having an attorney, and they didn't care about anything. You're barely even human in their system. You can't afford an attorney. You can't afford one. You can't afford one. I know people had to go through this when I was considering this, but it's just a reality. We have a rigged system, at least here, and that's just a reality. So it just says punitive damage. It was very rare. The opposing side's powerful legal resources can easily outmaneuver a non-attorney litigant through procedural motions, challenges to discovery, and delays. They have unlimited power to do this because they have the insurance companies take care of all that for them, and it's called not moral license, moral hazard. It means that's already been paid for, and that's not even counting their time. So here they tell me to file a formal complaint with the Medical Board of California, which is why I'm doing all this analysis in the first place. And then here's a summary of the costs. Court filing fees, $435. Service of process, $50 to $150. Court reporters, hundreds to thousands. Expert witnesses, 1,000, varies widely. Miscellaneous expenses, hundreds. And so they gave ChatGPT, their research 4.5 model, gave a total approximate minimum $3,000 to $5,000. So that's the absolute minimum. That's the answer. That is the absolute minimum you could expect to pay. So that's very sad. It's unfortunate. But that means, unless I'm thinking wrong, there is nothing you can do. Nothing. Unless you are fairly affluent and can afford a good attorney, there is nothing you can do against criminal, abusive practices, malpractice by a doctor. I realize this video is a little bit disjointed and disorganized. I keep procrastinating making these videos to explain what I've learned as I've gone through this horrible, dark process. And I think more of us need to start doing that, sharing information, because what I have concluded, and I've been avoiding this, but from top to bottom, this is a rigged system. These laws, you should be able to see, are just 100% protecting doctors. Every system that's been set up by our government is designed to do almost the opposite of what it was supposed to do. I think it's impossible. I think doctors more or less get a free pass. In my case, I have a guy I've never even met claim he was my psychiatrist, even give me disorders and put things in my official medical record, and nobody gives a rat's ass. So I've learned a lot. I'm going to start sharing more, even if these videos are a little messy. And I'd like to learn your stories too, and what's going on. Because if nothing else, I've learned about the medical board. I can save you a massive amount of time, energy, and money by telling you what's going on there. So I'm going to start with that. Many other things, but again, this is kind of a channel I've been on again, off again. Make some comments. Let me know if you've had something like this, your experience with suing a doctor, going through the Medical Board of California, or if you're in another state, what's going on in your state. Anyway, thank you for listening to this video or watching it, and thank you for your attention.